So this is the techno-functional point of view. So we'll talk about what is technical, what is functional, so what we need to learn, all these things. So we'll, by going through this slide by slide, so we'll try to understand that. So first we try to understand what is HCM and what is a ERP. So these are all the terminology which you will be, maybe you heard about this, or else you will be looking into this, because HCM is quite often, even if you go to any job profiles like JDs or anywhere, you find the HCM point of view. So first of all, what is HCM? How it relates to the Workday point of view, and what exactly the modules which we are going to learn. I mean the topics also, topic by topic. And how about the tenant? Okay, so what is the tenant and all? So we'll go through with the step by step in this. Okay. All right. So now we'll go with the HCM. And if you guys got any questions also, maybe you can ask at the end of this. Of course, we have a questionnaire time, and or else if you want to stop that middle, maybe that's up to you. If you want to do that, yes, you can do that. No worries. So what is HCM? Human Capital Management. Okay. What is ERP? Enterprise Resource Planning. The Human Capital Management is, we are actually managing the human capital. So what do you mean by human capital? For example, there is a company which got 2,000 employees. Assume that it's a small company where it got only 2,000 employees. So managing those 2,000 employees, that is our job. Okay. Like, that we normally go ahead and apply for any of the jobs. We will be getting a call from a recruiter. So now we will be thinking, or the perspective from the company perspective or company point of view, which you can go ahead and think about it. See, if you own a company of 2,000 employees, we need to manage the complete information about that 2,000 employees. So why we need to manage that? We need to give them salaries. We need to understand them, make them understand, or like what is the process they are doing. And those 2,000 employees, they are not doing the same work, right? Yes or no? Definitely they got different work to do, and all are getting same salary? No. According to the work profile, requirement, market value, there are many things comes to the picture when it comes to the salary point of view. So they got their different information, the personal information, and as well as performance point of view, and the talent, and all these things will come to the picture. Okay, so to manage the life cycle of an employee from the recruitment to the retirement, so that's what we call it HCM, Human Capital Management. And what is Enterprise Resource Planning? So how this, like which I can say that finance is there, okay, HR, supply chain, payroll, operations. So what will happen end of the day? Every month normally we get a salary. If you are into any of the company, we get a salary. So how it works? The HCM, Human Capital Management, is sending all the employees' data to payroll team. Payroll is reviewing that, and payroll is sending it to finance team, and finance is again reviewing that information and sending that to banks. So that's how it will be credited to our accounts. Okay, so this is the cycle. So all this finance, payroll, all this needs to communicate to each other. So that's what we call it ERP. enterprise resource planning. Now, what is the importance of the Workday? As we discussed that just a HCM point of view, human capital management. But what is the significance of the Workday HCM and why nowadays most of the companies are moving into Workday HCM? Right now they're migrating from legacy systems. Like this is a HR application. As you guys know that, at least just to make sure, this is HR application. And there is no prerequisites, which I can say that, okay, you don't need to learn anything relates to HR, or you don't need to have an experience on that HR. But yes, we can able to learn the things from the scratch. So no need to worry about that. I am not experienced into HR point of view. The only thing is you need to do the practice every day. So that should be there in order to learn that. But apart from that, no need of any prerequisites. That is very common questions, which everyone will get that. Okay. Now, as we are discussing that, this is the HR application, and there are lots of HR applications outside in the market. So why companies are preferring to Workday? Because we as a job seeker, actually I'm also working. Okay. So we as a job seeker will go with any of the application according to the market trend. If market is good, we'll jump into that. But why companies are moving into Workday? So these are all the main important things, which is it's a cloud-based SaaS solution. Is anyone aware of it? Software as a service. What exactly the software as a service? We'll look into that. The first and foremost thing, the companies are moving into Workday because of all these things. It's a one-stop solution. If the companies are moving into Workday, it's a one-stop solution. What do you mean by that? They will get everything, right? So we prefer going into like a shopping mall where you'll get everything: entertainment, food, shopping, or anything. So why we prefer that? Because generally we get everything. We don't need to go here and there for each and every option which we want to go with that, right? The similar way, the companies are moving into Workday because they get everything. That's a one-stop solution. What do you mean by everything? These are all, we call it modules. In SAP also, we call it modules. The similar way, even in Workday also, there are modules. What do you mean by modules are available? Like recruitment. There is a recruitment team who will be contacting you and making sure that your profile is shortlisted and appear for the interview. There are a couple of interview rounds. And after that, if you're still shortlisted further, definitely they will be calling you for the, providing you offer letter and further joining into the company. So this is all taken care by recruitment team. There is a separate team available for that recruitment. That's what we call it a module. Okay, who will be handling the recruitment. And there is a separate team who will be taking care of the payroll. That's what we just discussed earlier. And there is a separate team who will be taking care of the finance. So these are all the things which we call it module. So in Workday, so all the modules are available. If I own a company of, approximately 3,000 employees, a small company where I got 3,000 employees. So in order to manage that, I no need to go to here and there. I can go ahead and I can approach Workday where it's a one-stop solution. And it got a real-time insights. What do you mean by that? Where we can say that it's a whatever the updates we are going to get that from the Workday point of view, and it will come with the continuous innovation part, where every year in the month of March and in the month of September, we call it R1 and R2. That means release 1 and release 2. So Workday will be providing some updates. So how we get our updates in our phone? mobile phone. The similar way, Workday also providing some updates every year, twice, every 6 months. So it got a continuous innovation. Okay, now we'll come back to the part which is everyone is looking at SaaS solution. What do you mean by SaaS solution? This is software as service. It is cloud only. So we are not going to learn anything, apart from, out of box. So this is cloud only. In cloud, see what do you mean by cloud? Which I can say that there are different types of services which are available in cloud. Okay. If you see that there is I will give you an example, like the layman example. There is a cloud kitchen. Okay. Obviously, in the business part or like outside, if you can see that there is a cloud kitchen where somewhere the kitchen is available, where they'll be preparing the food and they'll be serving it to whatever the place they want or how they wanted to serve that. They can go ahead and do that. So the establishment of the kitchen setup and everything will be taken care by someone. The serving part and delivering part will be taken care by someone. So this is how business model is being divided right nowadays, because that will be easy for the person who is owning the business. No need to take care of each and every individual thing. So that's how they will save the time, money and everything. Okay, so that is the main purpose of the same thing applicable here also, which I can say SaaS, software as service. So we have platform as service, infrastructure as service, and software as service. The Workday we are talking about is software as service, because it's not that someone is going to provide your platform. It's not that someone is going to provide your infrastructure to do your business. So the Workday, it runs in the form of software as service. Someone is providing the software itself. So we are not going to use this Workday in any other application. I mean to say, there is a dedicated application provided by Workday. Yes, they'll be providing you a web browser, like the link, so we can able to access through web browser. It's centrally hosted and no need to install any applications or no need to do any maintenance. So best example would be the Gmail. Okay, so now everyone would be supposed to have a Gmail account, I guess. So everyone must be using it. And we have a Gmail account where I can log into my Gmail account in any laptop. Not only my personal laptop, I can log into any other laptop, not required to install anything. So immediately I can log into that. The only thing is that laptop should have internet access, and as well as I should have a Gmail account, username and password. That's what the subscription based, right? So this is what we need to understand, the software as service. That is a SaaS model which is using, and it's completely, so there is nothing called a maintenance. Okay, so we can access Workday through the link which they got provided. And I was talking about modules. Okay, so what type of modules we have, what exactly we are going to learn in this curriculum, which I can say in this program. So all these things which we'll be discussing here. So as I've told you earlier, I've just given a glimpse of what is a module, where there is a recruitment is being taken care by recruitment team, right? So that recruitment is a separate module. HCM, human capital management, we call it core HCM, the complete core information of the workers. That's what we are going to learn it. We'll talk about that. And there is a payroll is a separate module, and time tracking is a separate module, where employees are, we are going to hire an employee. We means as a company perspective. Okay, we are going to hire an employee. So what will happen? We need to understand that, yes, they're working. How do we know that? We need to track their time. Time means that 8 hours, 9 hours per day, they're clocking the time. So in order to do that, also we have a separate module available in Workday, which is time tracking. And there is a talent management, learning management, financials. So these are all the modules available, separate modules. Okay. Now, out of these modules, we are going to learn the foundation, which is core HCM. Okay, that is a basics to understand, because if you want to go to any other module, like for example, I want to learn payroll. So first of all, I need to understand the core compensation in order to get into the payroll. So how it functions, the Workday is going to function. I need to understand the organization part, because when we go to the payroll, we are going to create a pay group. So that is also part of the organization, or we call it organization. So first of all, we need to understand these topics, the foundation. If you want to go to any module, so these are all the basics or the foundation, or if you understand this, it will be easy for you to jump into any of the module. And by the way, this is a very common question, which everyone, when you're exploring this topic or the course, you'll be getting the common question. So I have a lot of experience, like 10 years, 12 years, or something like that. I wanted to switch my career, and which one I need to select? Is it a technical part, or else is it a functional part? This is a very common question. Or which module I need to get into? Okay. So which I can answer it right now. The only thing is, if you want to go to any module, what my suggestion is, if you want to go to any module, the very first and foremost thing is you need to understand the basic concepts. That is the foundation part. That is the core HCM. These are all the topics which will be covered: organization, staffing, jobs and positions, core compensation, security, and business process. That's what we are going to learn in this training sessions. We'll talk more about these topics in the next slides, but just I'm giving you a glimpse of it, how it works. And answer for the question is, yes, you can go ahead and apply for that, and you can go ahead and proceed further. If you want to go with the technical, where you have coding knowledge, it's completely technical point of view, yes, you can very well get into that. But if you want to get into the functional, you no need of any coding knowledge. I guess you might heard about that, or that already. So we don't require any coding knowledge by doing this course, or whatever we are going to go through this right now. Okay, so these are all the topics which are going to cover in this overall. Like I can say that how many hours? This is also one of the question. So it will be covered with a 32 to 35 hours, depends on the 1-2 hours. It will be here and there, but in order to cover everything, the techno functional part, which will take 32 to 35 hours. Okay, Monday to Friday, daily 1 hour, and Saturday, the tenant is not going to work, and Sunday, normally we don't take the sessions. So we'll talk about that. What is tenant also? I've been using this tenant for multiple times, but I will let you know that. So what exactly the tenant? Okay, now these are all the topics. Maybe like here we mentioned in an order, but ideally we go with a different sequence. But end of the day, these are all the topics we're going to cover in this training sessions. So why we split this as a functional and technical, I'll show you that by end of this 2 slides. Okay, so first thing is core concepts. So where we fit into this Workday ecosystem, that is important, because when we are trying to learn the course, or when we are trying to learn something, we need to understand that where we fit into the system, because whatever we are going to learn is different. Sometimes where you see the job descriptions in LinkedIn, because most of the Workday chunk is available in LinkedIn only. Okay, if you go to Naukri, LinkedIn, whatever the job portals, you'll see the JDs, multiple JDs you might find. So the JD should, what they have written, what the requirement would be different, and what you are going to learn in generally is different. I don't want that. I'm like a kind of person, I give the layman examples, and I believe on logic. What do you mean by logic? It's not that we are going to create something. It's not that we are just, I'll just go through the slides and everything. I'll give you why we are creating it. You need to understand the logic behind what we are doing. It's not that just we are going to learn something. No. We try to understand it. We try to experience it. Because there is no fresher concepts in Workday. It's very rare. Definitely the experienced candidates only will get into the Workday. At least we need to showcase that minimum of 2 years of experience. Okay, so when we are showcasing the other experience to Workday experience, definitely you need to learn something. That's what we are doing in this training sessions. Make you to understand the real-time structure or real-time scenarios and how it's going to work in the real-time point of view. So for that, in order to understand that, you need to understand where we stand out in this Workday ecosystem. What type of jobs are there and how do we get into that? What are all things which we need to learn? So all these things which you will get an idea, which I can say that when we talk about the core concepts and basic navigation about tenant and all. So as I've told you, we'll talk about this tenant after this, and tenant is like right now I can say that it's just a place where it got provided from the Workday point of view, where we go ahead and we can log in and we can do all this transactions or the activities. So that's what we can call it a tenant. Okay, now we'll go with the order just to make sure you guys can understand that, which is organizations. So this is very important. See, when you see that chapter by chapter or like these topics, maybe you can see that individually, but end of the day, all the topics are related, are linked together, which I can say that if you need to understand this and you need to, like, for example, there is a hiring workers, chapter 5. If you need to understand that, you need to understand the supervisory organization, because where we are going to hire employees. So ideally what we are going to do is we are going to set up the organization. Okay, set up the company. For example, the same example which I can take, that there are 3,000 employees in a company. So as we discussed that, we are not going to give the same salary to all the 3,000 employees. We are not going to give the same work to all the 3,000 employees. We need to manage them. How to manage them? That's what we are going to learn. So we need to manage them. So how we are going to manage them? First, we need to segregate with the departments. HR department, right? And IT department, operations, finance, right? So we are going to segregate all of them into departments. But in Workday point of view, we call it a supervisory organization. Is completely, I can say that, heart of this core HCM. What is a supervisory organization? For every manager, the same example, there are 3,000 employees. Okay, and we are going to, in order to manage the 3,000 employees, there are roughly, I am just giving a rough numbers. These are all 800 managers are available, including CEO. Okay, 800 managers are available. So this 800 managers, we are going to create 800 supervisory organizations. Okay. The thumb rule here is every manager should have at least one reportee. So one person should be reporting to that manager. That's where we'll be creating supervisory organization. So we'll see more into that, what type of organizations, why we are using that. So these are the basics to understand. And after that, staffing model. After we create a supervisory organization. Okay. After that, we need to hire employees. How we are going to hire employees? There are two types in this staffing model. How we staff them. So one is job management Another one is position management. And we'll look into the jobs and positions, where how to create job profiles, how to create a position, and how to fill into that. So all these things which we'll be looking into. And that's what we call it hiring in this supervisory organization. So that's what I told you. If you understand supervisory, then you'll understand eventually the topics. Right? So that's how everything is interlinked. And we'll try to understand, or we'll try to create this compensation part. So Workday has divided the compensation part into two types, where it's a core compensation, what we are going to learn, and there is advanced compensation is also available, that is separate module. Okay, so advanced is talking about, in a nutshell, just to make sure that an advanced compensation is talking about the complete merit year-end process. Every company will give the bonus, merit, according to the performance. So all these things will come, right? Maybe the stocks, if they're giving, few companies are going to provide the stocks. So all these things will come to the picture, wherein advanced compensation. But we are going to learn the core compensation, which is talking about creating the compensation grades, plans, compensation package. So all these things which we'll be learning here in this core compensation. So after that, which I can say, there is something called business process. So for every company, there is a process to follow that. If you want to, like, you're applying for one of the company, for any job, like Workday only, for example, if you're applying in any of the company, so what will happen? The interview process going on. Once you're shortlisted, they'll be asking you to submit all the documents to go ahead and provide the offer letter. So this is how it goes with the company. Take any company. So every company got their own set of rules and regulations. For example, if you are attending an interview, few companies got 2 rounds of interview. Few companies got 3 rounds of interview. Few companies which I've seen that like 5 rounds of interview. It depends on the company to company, what are the standard procedure, or whatever the business process framework, that's what we call it. And few companies, termination point of view. Termination means in Workday, even if I put down the papers and I want to exit from the company also, the terminology which we call it is a termination. So if I want to voluntarily terminate or into that, the process that, so few companies will be 30 days of notice period, 60 days of notice period, and 90 days of notice period. So that every company got their set of rules. That's what we'll be learning, the business process. And the security. Of course, whatever we are going to create here, from the beginning. So all these things which needs to have a security. Because when it comes to the compensation, as an employee, I can go ahead and I can check my compensation in the system, right? But I cannot go ahead and change it. So that is the security who is stopping here. The similar way, for everything, there is a security. It plays a crucial role. So that's what we'll be checking with the security part. Till now, I can say that the complete, maybe as I've told you earlier also, the sequence would be different, but this is what we'll be learning. These are all the topics which we'll be learning. Okay. Now, this is what we'll be learning, the functional part, and where we'll be jumping into technical part. But I just wanted to ask one question. I don't know how many people are aware of that. Maybe you can just unmute yourself and you can answer that if you know, or if you don't know also, at least give a try. So everyone must be aware of that. We don't have coding. Okay. So anyone is aware of that? Why don't we have a coding? If I take an example of not Workday, first we'll talk about so why we need a coding. Okay, first we'll look into other applications, maybe any other application or other applications. See, data is crucial in any application. Even if it is Workday, even if it is any other application, data is crucial because we can understand that we have been creating all the supervisory organization, we have been creating all other organizations, and that means we are loading the data, right? Employees information. There are 2,000 employees, there are 3,000 employees. So whatever the employees we got into our system, so we will be loading the data. So what will happen? Data plays a crucial role. So this is the database. So data is stored in one of the place which we call it database. So I guess you guys aware of that there is a database is available. And this database, in order to fetch the data, in order to get the data from this database, I'll be using SQL query. Are you guys getting it? I need to write a code here. This is outside Workday. Outside Workday. Now we'll come to, this is the requirement, guys. This is the requirement where we need to write a code. So in order to fetch the data, we'll be writing a code. Now, if you understand this in Workday point of view, how Workday is going to function. So one more thing, one more point, we'll add it here. So how the data is being saved in the form of table, like we have rows and columns. It's like our Excel sheet only. So outside, how the data is being saved in the form of table, that is rows and columns, and that's been saved in the database. And in order to get or fetch the data from the database, we need to write a SQL query. So this is how it works. But in Workday point of view, how it works, here also we got the data. Okay, here also we got the data, and data is being saved, of course. Without saving the data, we cannot proceed further. We need to fetch the data here also. But how the data is being saved in the form of, it's not a table, it is being saved in the form of business object. I'll let you know that what is a business object. So now we can understand that if you click on something, someone said just now, right? So maybe you guys has given example in a normal way or in generic way. I'm just justifying that how it works in a technical point of view. So data is being saved in the database, and how the data is being saved in the form of business object. Okay, so it's just very simple. If you just click on that, for example, employee ID, if you click on that, there is a employee ID information is available. That's it. So that is what I can say that business object. Okay, now in order to fetch this data, again, we also need to fetch the data. So since it is saved in the form of business object, not with the table. So it is saved in the form of business object, and this business object is also managed by Workday only. So that's the reason you won't find any database admin jobs in Workday. And in order to fetch this, what we are going to do, we will be using the reports. In order to fetch the data, we'll be using the reports. That's the reason we don't have a coding here. I hope you guys got a clarity. Anyone got any question? All the data, like whatever we have created till now, all this data is been saved in the form of business object. And business object, from business object, we are going to fetch the data. So that is reports. So while creating this reports, so report means just a normal, like how we are going to, head count or this type of reports, how many people are there in the supervisory organization, what are all their, employee ID, and as well as their compensation. So I can get that report. So I can run the report, I can fetch it. So in order to go ahead and run the report, we need to have calculated fields. So that means few fields which are available, which are provided by Workday. See, ideally Workday makes our job easy. So few fields, few reports provided by Workday only. Few things which are required according to the requirement, which I can say that, business requirement. We will be creating some fields and as well as reports also. So we'll see that more into when we go to the reporting part. And after that, which we'll be discussing about integrations. So I was talking about this. There are different modules are available: recruitment, core HCM, compensation, payroll, benefits. All these modules are available. There are many modules I didn't mention here, but there are many modules, as I've told you, financials, all these things. There are many modules. So all these modules, for example, it's not that compulsory that every company will go through with all the modules from Workday. Okay, if they use Workday, it's really well and good, but it's not that compulsory they can go with Workday. They might use a different applications outside: Oracle, SAP SuccessFactors, Kronos, Concur for the expenses and all. There are many applications which are available outside, like Workday. So if they are using multiple applications, maybe that's a cost effective. Maybe they think their business won't require this much. So many things are there. We cannot say that that is a business point of view. But any module, if they are using any module, end of the day, what will happen from core HCM to the data needs to be sent it to from core HCM to payroll team, from payroll to finance team. Then only everyone in the company will get their salary. If this cycle, it's going to break somewhere. So what will happen? People are there in the company, they won't get the salary. Right? So in order to manage this or connect this, which we call it the integration, though they are from outside systems, which has been connected. I can say, for example, there is an Oracle Financial, and Workday Core HCM. These two needs to be connected. So what I can say is integrations means two systems are going to talk to each other. So that's what the integrations. In Workday, we have different integration tools which we are using it. One is EIB. This is a basic one, and 60% of the work which you will be doing that in your job, that is EIB part, which is Enterprise Interface Builder. In EIB, we got inbound and outbound. What do you mean by inbound and outbound? It's like our incoming and outgoing calls. Okay, so inbound means we are receiving the data. We need to see that from the Workday perspective. Okay, so inbound means we are receiving the data. Outbound means we are sending the data to third party. Okay, there are different types of integrations like core connectors, APIs. Okay, so Studio also, I've not mentioned here. That's advanced concept where we need to install Studio in the system and it needs to connect to the tenant. So these are all the things. At least I'll give you a better idea about this, the EIBs and core connectors and all this, which are working in this tenant. And then I'll show you that how to work more on APIs and as well as the Studio point of view, like how the things are going to work if you want to get completely inside the technical part. Yes, if you go deeper into that, the Studio part or complex integrations which you are doing that, definitely you need to learn the XML and XSLT, that is the language. Okay, till here, we no need of any coding skills required. EIBs and core connectors, at least EIBs, which I can say that. Okay, so you no need of any programming language or any languages which you need to learn. No need of that. Okay, this is the reports and calculated fields and integrations. These are all the technical part. That is 20-30%, which I can say. The rest is functional part. That's the reason it is completely into a techno-functional point of view. So nowadays, people want, already you know that how the market is. People want who knows at least knowledge of the technical. It's not only functional, which I know only these things. No, that's not going to work, because we need to have knowledge on technical, where if you want to explain that to the technical team. Okay, so that is the main purpose of this course, where it got designed with the techno-functional point of view. And I have been keep talking about tenant. Okay, it's very simple. Even when you are going with this sessions, you will be provided the tenant access. That is the GMS tenant, that is a practice tenant, where you can go ahead and practice it. Okay, and what is a tenant? First of all, I have been using the terminology called tenant. Tenant is nothing but, if we go to new place, okay, so what will we do? We will be finding the rooms or maybe apartments, right? So where will become a tenant over there. They are giving some space and will become a tenant over there. The same thing applicable here. Workday is providing a unique URL with the username and password, and we'll be logging into it. So no need of any installation, no need of maintenance. We are going to do nothing. So Workday itself is providing the environment to do all this tasks. Okay, to maintain our employees' information. So that's what we call it a tenant. There are different types of tenants. By eventually, like by going through this sessions, you will understand what is the tenant and what are all the types of tenants. I'll show you that. I'll at least explain that. And when it comes to the tenants, these three tenants which we need to understand, this is the production tenant and the sandbox tenant and sandbox preview tenant. So production tenant is nothing but, everyone must be aware of it. Like, it's a live tenant where, for example, if I have taken 3,000 employees information, the 3,000 employees information is available here in this production tenant. This is a live tenant. We're not going to do any changes in this until everything is okay. So how we know that everything is okay? We need to check that in the sandbox tenant. That is the testing tenant. Before move anything, any transaction into production, we'll be testing that in the sandbox tenant. Okay. And what is the purpose of the sandbox preview tenant? As I've told you, Workday is providing, there are 2 updates or 2 releases in every year, every 6 months, right? So that 2 updates or 2 releases, which we will be examining, or which we will be going with the testing phase in sandbox preview tenant. That is the purpose of the sandbox preview tenant. Okay. Of course, you guys will be knowing this, the career opportunities, these type of roles which you will be finding. So according to your previous experience, according to your, like, which I can say that the salary part also, salaries are very good. Most of you guys got this type of questions. So it depends on your previous experience and salary. That's how the salary would be. And when it comes to the career point of view, yeah, it's really good. Maybe you might see that in the LinkedIn or any other place. So how it works. So it's really good. Right now the market is good, and see how it works. So these are all the things which are available. You can get that in outside also, just understanding purpose. So these are all the things which we have discussed just now, and